expectations, Doa. But without further ado, we are ready to begin the grand finals of the Teamfight Tactics Fates Championship. Let's hop into round number one.
That's right, here we go, the first game of the day. We're going to start out with Lalana's perspective. Can I just say, too, that if Lalana wins the tournament, can one of the rewards just be that his voice comes out of that little legend in the game from now on? I need that
Yes.
after seeing that interview.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you name that little legend, by the way,
comments. I saw some comments comparing Lalana kind of like to a throwback Dyrus, but with a British accent, just kind of a little flat, not really sure what to expect, you know, and seems a little bit dull. But rest assured, I think he's pretty excited. He's just trying to make sure to contain himself before the finals start.
Well, I'd be excited to get this item start too. You know, you can at least slam a Hand of Justice. That's a great item to just use throughout the game. So already off to a pretty decent start on the item front is Lalana. We'll see what he decides to go with for his early game composition. Got a couple cultists already, and cultist Frodan have been something that have been strong lately, but with this new Callista carry emerging, it seems like cultists have become a much more viable all game long sort of style rather than something to kind of use to get you through a strong mid game.
Totally, and I think that one of the things to consider is what are some of the compositions that people will now be thinking of more, because it's no longer a survive format, right? You know, people in the past would be picking compositions that were really solid to land top 4 so they can keep moving on to the next day. However, you know, it's exactly what you described, Doa. Some compositions are really good at getting that top 4, like going for 9 cultists, but has difficulty closing things out. And that might work for the first couple of games because people will be able to get to that point threshold, that 18-point threshold, as you can see on the right side of your screen. You know, getting a couple of thirds in a row is going to get you to that point really quick. But what is the composition that really gets you to first, and how will players really approach knowing that they need to play for that in the late stages of this tournament, or rather late stage of today? So that's going to be really interesting to see how the meta develops even within just one day of competition.
Yeah, I mean, as the game goes on, Frodan, things are going to get increasingly crazy, right? Because I think, like you said, we can expect some pretty safe top 4 oriented play for the first few games. Like we said, get that 18-point threshold as fast as you can, and you know, 3/3 will do it, like you mentioned, or other, you know, a couple top 4 finishes, a second and a fourth, you know, all that kind of stuff. But once you get to that threshold, then the craziness is going to start coming out. We're going to see players start to take a lot of risks, go for those big high roll opportunities. Try to get those first place boards, and I think it's going to get pretty explosive, pretty fun around the time that happens. Looks like a bit of a duelist start here. Finds the Jax, finds the Yasuo, and of course puts that Hand of Justice on the Yasuo. We'll see how well this does. It's probably not much of a win streaking board, but you know, it's one of those situations where it's like, if you win this round, maybe you think about you know, leveling up next time. Otherwise, you could probably just sell the bench and hit 10 too.
Yeah, so this is definitely one of the hardest spots to be in early game. You have a lot of gold to work with, but you're not sure if you want to make gold, and you're also holding a ton of pairs, and you also want to ensure to keep yourself open to really powerful starts like this Diana or any kind of spirit opening. And he didn't really get offered much of a chosen either, so his direction is pretty much split in so many different paths, and he made one of the most generic items in Hand of Justice, so he doesn't exactly have even further direction. Sure, you can pick up this Maokai Chosen. It's a very good early game frontline tank, but you know, he also has nothing else to pair with that Maokai at the moment. So Lalana seems to be stuck in a couple of hard places. We're going to check back in momentarily and also see what Jaywalking is up to, who seems to have that early duelist, rather cultist, with a Callista and a Runin's Hurricane. That is an extremely powerful start.
Right, you can see Adel Jaywalking doing a little bit of scouting early on. You always want to see, you know, synergies like that early fortune that players have, early Chosens people might have hit. But yeah, I think with the Chosen Cultist Elise and the Runins on the Callista, this is going to be a pretty strong board early on for Adel Jaywalking. Got the Keeper buff in there as well because of the Jarvan. Here's a battle of the century, but the Tristana is going to win that. But yeah, I think if I'm Jaywalking, I'm going to feel pretty confident about this start. He finds a Pike as well, so cultists certainly seem to be on the menu.
I mean, yes, he had 6 cultists at 2-3. He's leveling to 5 before the carousel. This is not something you see very conventionally, but it makes entirely too much sense when you think about the fact that he wants to preserve his streak. He keeps the pressure up, and also he's putting in a stretch trade that is one of the strongest possible stage 2 synergies that you can have. You know, getting the 6 cultist summons Galio at a 2-star level, and he will start getting abilities, right? Every single star tier that you're able to put Galio, he gets an additional ability. He first be able to taunt, and he uses a little bit of an effect there. And then when he gets to 3-star through 9 cultists, he gets a Quicksilver effect of not being able to be crowd control. It's super strong, and a lot of players have been employing it to much success throughout this entire tournament.
Yeah, I mean, you just added on to that the simple fact that Runins is such an amazing item on Callista, and this is just an insanely strong board. Takes a bit of a chunk out of his fellow Korean representative in SCSC. Yeah, they're going to be facing each other a couple times throughout the day, but it's kind of looking like, unless something changes, Jaywalking's going to look to win streak through stage 2, try to maintain that 100 HP as long as he possibly can, but let's see what he ends up picking up off the first carousel. I didn't happen to see... Okay, he's got a rod as well, so... What would you be looking through here? Looking for here? Would you maybe be thinking Rage Blade? What would be on your mind if you were jaywalking?
Yeah, there's 2 different approaches that you can go from the cultists. One, you can try to commit to a full win streak and just simply make your best item, right? So Rage Blade, for example, can be something that you can employ, but a lot of people would probably even think about Morel Namicon, Lock of the Iron Solari, you know, whatever. But in this case, he doesn't really have anything that's too good of a slam. He can pick up a cloak. Cloak that combines with a rod and you know, an Ionic Spark. It's okay. It's actually a pretty solid early game item. It does tend to fall off a lot late game, and there's not many great holders of it. But you know, if he's just committed to saying play best board, level as fast as you can, and go to level 9, we've seen some. You know, actually we've seen a lot of Korea players try doing that. SESC was a player that was really employing that strategy pretty often. I felt like every other game we were switching to him whenever we were watching, he was going for a fast 9 strategy, and 6 cultists is like the perfect vehicle to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it kind of fits with what we know about the general quote-unquote Korean style of playing TFT, is that they like to level quickly, they like to be aggressive with building that strong board, and once they get there, trying to get to those higher levels. And he's just going to go ahead and slam the Ionic Spark. I think the Elise 2 is a great place to put that. She's probably going to live long enough to get a lot of benefit from it, and again, just a strong board gets stronger. That said... There is going to be that Nico 2 on the other side for possible. Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say this is one of the strongest things that you can do, but hitting a 2-star 3 cost as defining of a composition as Nico is really, really big. Love that little manner buy from Jaywalking saying, hey, you want this unit? I'm just going to go ahead and buy it and sell it real quick. Wow, that's an early Nico 2 here, Doa.
No kidding. I mean, we've seen how strong Nico has been over the course of the week as well. She got some buffs in a recent patch. The damage went up. And just Vanguards are sitting in a pretty good place meta-wise right now. We generally see the Vanguard Mystic sort of package with Nico. You can do other things, but you don't really need to. So having that Nico 2 early on, I think Possible is going to be pretty surprised that he actually lost around early, and he's going to just go ahead and take that. He's lost 3, actually. I'm shocked that this board is on a loss streak, honestly. But he's just going to make sure by taking out that Nico that he carries that loss streak into Krugs now.
Yeah, so this is a pretty nice move here from Pass the Ball. You know, a lot of people say, like, why is he weakening his board? I get told by top-level players all the time, play best board, slam your items. He's committing to the momentum because he can get that full 4 streak going into Krugs. Where he has the ability to ramp up his economy. Because when you play Nico, a lot of times the limiting factor is whether or not you can roll enough gold to get to Nico 3-star. So this is a really heads-up play. You know, purposely frontlining Lulu, recognizing that she's a backliner traditionally to try to make his board even weaker. And so this was well executed by Pass the Ball. So going into Krugs, checking around the lobby, you know, we do have their 6 cultists, but there's also another player, Zaiku, who's been streaking as well with that chosen Tristana. So, you know, it's not super common to see 2 players at 100 health. Usually they tend to run into each other sometime during stage 2, but those are your early lobby leaders. So I'll be looking out to see how they're going to capitalize onto it. We kind of know what Jaywalking wants to do, but how much does Zaiku want to commit to that Tristana? Does he want to reroll, or does he want to simply use it to power level?
Yeah, I would say I'd be more curious to see what Zaiku has got in mind, because that Tristana, if you aren't going for that Tristana 3, it's something that's going to be falling off at some point, and you have to have a plan out of that. We'll go ahead and jump over to Zaiku's view actually and see what he's up to. He's got that 3 sharpshooter in right now because it is a chosen sharpshooter. Gonna put the Morello Namicon, of course, on Tristana. She's a great user of that item because she can apply that effect to a lot of people. And just in general, this is looking pretty solid. But an interesting mix of items, actually. Runins, Morellonomicon, just generally some good items, but you can go a lot of different directions from this. Definitely not go in the reroll style.
Yeah, so you can see that Zaiku went so far the opposite direction. He's leveling off Cadence in order to get to level 6, and this is for him to remain competitive and keep his win streak. He's not as focused on his economy because he can get that gold back if he can get the win, and because there's a chance that he still queues into jaywalking, he goes ahead and levels to 6 a little bit early. Very much a common play at high level and something that's been very effective to continue this win streak. Funny enough, he still hasn't queued into jaywalking, and there's been, you know, games where you've seen in the past where 2 players at 100 HP, even at the end of stage 3, because it seems like they never queue into each other. But that might be difficult. Some players are really hitting. Lana finally got 3-star Diana online. Additional confirmation as to why Zaiku didn't commit to the reroll, because if he did, he'd be contested.
Yep, exactly. You don't want to be in a situation where you're both going for those 1-cost 3 stars. You know, there's enough champions out there to do it, but your chances of hitting it go way down. You end up spending a lot more gold getting there. So, smart decision, I think. He's going to run into Passeball, who now has that, now is a Kindred 2 and a Janna 2. This board is getting a little bit insane. We'll see if it's enough, though, because that Tristana is still going to be very, very scary to go up against.
Yeah, it's all about frontline, whether or not you can give Tristana enough time, and the answer is no. Zaiku didn't go down to the hands of the other win streaker from jaywalking. Instead, a fellow Frenchman, Padeball, was able to get the win streak snap. And you know what? As much as I'm sure these players would love to cheer for each other, and you know they probably would say that their fellow region representatives would be the other people that's joined them in the top, it's every man for himself at this final day of competition. So you can't be like too upset. It's like, you know, why'd you grief me? You know, you could have definitely helped each other. You know, all bets are off on Championship Friday.
100%. I mean, that's the thing, is at the end of the day, you want to be the person taking home that $41,000, right? You want to be the one who can say, hey, I'm the set 4 champion, you know? As good of friends as you may be, getting that title is going to be the end day goal, right? Here comes that Diana 3 from Lalana, Infinity Edge, and Hand of Justice. It's going to be the 1v1 between the Tristana and the Diana, and you think once that shield pops, yep, it's going to be an easy win there. So Zaiku's starting to go on a little bit of a loss streak.
One thing we didn't really notice immediately when the 3-star Diana was hit was that Lalana's not building a tanky Diana. Currently in the metagame, it's been pretty common to see Diana take very strong defensive items because spirit compositions are so fragile. You want to have somebody that can actually tank and draw a lot of the attention. So people have been building Locus of the Eye and Solari, a Dragon's Claw, a Bramble Vest, anything that can just really keep Diana alive. Heck, I mean, maybe even 3 Lockets if you can get it. But instead, he's building an offensive-based Diana with Infinity Edge and Hand of Justice. Those are items that traditionally go on the Akali. So, Do, what do you think about that? We haven't actually seen offensive-build Diana in quite some time in the metagame.
You know, I haven't played it myself in a long, long time. And like you were saying, it's not something we usually see. So Diana 3 is an investment for sure, but he did hit it pretty quickly. Hit it on 3 too. So economy-wise, let's see, sitting on well, actually it just goes in levels to get into the 4 Assassin, 4 Spirit. So I think for now, I mean, there could be a change later, but I think for now, Lalana's just saying, hey, I've got this great opportunity to get this really strong comp online a little bit earlier than you would normally see, and he's just going to try to ride that to as much success as he can. So we'll see how it pans out, because yeah, that's not the usual Diana that we see. He does have item removers, though, so...
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you bring up a really good point, right? Just getting the Lucky Lantern, seeing the Magnetic Remover, that actually opens up even more paths, because let's say that he can play Diana Kiri until he gets to the point where he finds his 3-star Akali. Then he can Magnetic Remove, place these 2 items, which are premium items, onto Akali, because you want to emphasize her critical damage and the fact that, you know, Akali's auto attacks hit like a truck with that extra ninja buff. You know, it's huge. So, you know, I really love the flexible position that Alana's in. The one caveat is that you don't see people leveling to 6 at 3-5 and have less than 10 gold and stay under 10 gold. You know, this is a very much a high commitment from Lalana. He needs to start streaking. If he's going the win-loss dynamic, he's not going to be able to recover his economy, and he's going to be playing from behind for the rest of the game, not even necessarily being able to hit to level 7, level 8 as quickly as he would want to. So these next couple of battles are huge for him.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, hitting enough to get those 4 assassins with the early talent online is what caused him to sort of go for that early level. But like you said, he's got to make it count for something. Going up against Ramkev, our sole North American player here in the tournament, the hope of NA, and found an early Sejuani, but looks like he is going to take a round loss here. That Katarina not being able to go off, and Ramkev, like the hope of NA, but he's at 33 HP right now. That is not a good position to be in before Wolves. That's a bit rough.
Yeah, it's really rough, particularly because you check out Ramkev's board. It's very clear what he's trying to do. You know, he's trying to fortune snap his streak. And, you know,
Right.
I don't know exactly how many losses Ramkev's at. He's at 6. You know, 6 isn't even that good of a fortune streak. So, I mean, it's okay. You start to hit some really powerful stuff as you start to hit higher numbers, obviously. But, you know, it's one of the situations where Ramkev could break his fortune streak, right? But let's say he does, and all he gets is a bunch of gold and, you know, maybe a Nico's. Does that really solve the long-term problem for him? It doesn't. Not to mention, he's got 3 bows. That's not really exactly something that's really powerful for mages, which is the traditional way that you convert off of your streak. He's got even more defensive items, 2 cloaks. What do you do with this? Are you just trying to force a Slayer's position? What is Ramkev going to choose to do?
You may have to. He might rent the Assassin Akali here to try to break this fortune streak and cash out. But yeah, I mean, when I look at those items, it's like, you know, you've got Runin's Titan's Resolve looks like a good option. Obviously, Rapid Fire Cannon is there, and I think when he hit that Akali, he was kind of thinking that same thing. Yeah, you know, honestly, Dragon's Claw is not bad, and if you can somehow find a position to, you know, this is like getting way out there, but like if you can find a position to get like a Mage Swain and then put the D-Claw on it, I don't know. It's gonna be rough. I don't mind the Titan's Resolve Slam here. You need to break this. You need to pop this fortune streak.
Oh, the big cash from Katarina is going to be able to do it. Ramkev has successfully converted. He sits up. All right, now it's time to find out what is in the box. And, you know, he does still have fairly generic items. He can play a bunch of different compositions, but most importantly, that fortune loot is going to tell us where he should go.
Okay, and you notice he didn't hit everything at once. He paused to look at the items, but look at this, more defensive items. Another cloak. I guess he can build a Morello's, but this is time to get a little bit creative here. Time to lean into the defensive item possibilities. We saw SCSE do it successfully earlier in the tournament. It's not impossible, but it is an interesting situation that Ramkev is in.
Yeah, so this is a situation where I think if Ramkev identifies it, he says, okay, I think with these things, I'm going to try to play for like a 6th place. He got a cloak and a belt and a rod drop. That's not exactly what he's looking for. If anything, I think he would be wishing that he got Nico's help, so that way he could just immediately say cash in on a set 2, give him some of those items, and try to have him crash back, you know, and win streak for as long as he can. But right now, it's pretty much going back to his losing ways. He immediately snapped his fortune streak, and you don't want to lose afterwards because you need to protect the remnants of your hit points. Ramkev's in a really bad spot here, Doa.
Yeah, so the question is, you know, what can he do to maybe lean into this set, like you were saying? It would have been nice to get something like a Nico's help to try to go for that set 2, but you know, when I look at that Titan's Resolve on Akali, I'm kind of like, well, maybe we want to put that on set instead. He slams the Ionic Spark just because, again, that's going to be something that just sort of increases his damage across the board, punishes opponents a little bit, but yeah, it's not looking like a strong board. Everything besides the Chosen is a 1-star right now. We'll see what he can do against Jaywalking, who has started to lose a little bit of health, but oh man, look at that Callista. It's still Callista 1, but those are some pretty good items on that champion.
Very much so. And, you know, Ramkev basically is gritting his teeth and saying, you know what, I'm just going to stick through it, wait till after carousel, go to 8, and then full send. Oof. So Ramkev, after this carousel, I anticipate he's going to try to have to put, this is where the buck stops. He's going to pick his best champion or best possible way to power up, maybe just this set for just the raw ability to go set 2. And then he's going to roll it down and hopefully find direction. He's going to pick up the sword instead, I guess, to open up possibilities because he still has the out of maybe hitting a KO Chosen because he has Rapid Fire Cannon. Maybe he has to play some Slayers, but still, his items are still very fairly open. The only thing that I don't think he can do right now is commit to mages because he doesn't have that big spell power boost for the Aurelion Soul.
Yeah, and don't forget, too, he's got those 2 item removers, so he's got the flexibility to move around his items quite a bit. You know, if you look at the Katarina and the items on the Akali as well, you can double item remove and then just get like a GA Hand of Justice Rapid Fire Cannon Akali, you know? So you can make some pretty good stuff. He's actually going to sell the Akali, decides to go for a different Chosen. It's probably a good idea since that Akali isn't going to be great over time. Finds the Yone down to 3 gold though. Doesn't really find any sort of spectacular Chosen here. He does manage to get Slayers in. Yeah, I might as well just pick up that, the Callista. It is something at least. But
Yes,
I'd be a bit nervous.
You're very spot on. It is something. It's not great.
Yeah.
Usually you go to 8 so you can get a 4-cost Chosen. If you want a Callista Chosen, you should have rolled at 7, right? And preserve that 40+ gold that you spent getting there. But you know what? It's a temporary placeholder. Callista is a great holder of Rapid Fire Cannon, keeps her safe from a distance, and he's just trying to kill as many units. And the name of the game for Ramkev is survive to see if he can live for the end of Stage 4. And the reason why the end of Stage 4 is so relevant is because he's still not even done collecting his item components. He's slamming everything he possibly can. There's everything and the kitchen sink committed to this board. No free components. The only thing you could argue is whether or not he should use his magnetic remover. But right now, if I'm in Rankev's seat, I'm thinking about what is the best way for me to even survive to the end of Stage 4, which is always such a bad feeling when you die before that.
Yeah, I was looking at the same thing that Ramkev was just a moment ago, where I'm like, yeah, do you really need the Vanguard buff as much as you need to just get that Yone 1 in there? I think Yone 1's going to be a stronger addition overall to this board, but 8 HP, Dire Straits, it's really looking like Ramkev's looking at 8, and he runs into SCSC, who has a strong Callista of his own. It's Callista Day, apparently, here in the TFT tournament. 3 players running it at the moment, and unfortunately, Ramkev... he looks fairly weak, but maybe when the set comes back, that Tryndamere actually starting to make some plays. All right. Okay, interesting. So the Titan's Resolve got stacked. The Tryndamere was able to just live barely long enough, and Ramkev manages to sustain for just one more round at least.
Yes, and one more round
Crucial.
is potentially all he needs to swing. But here's another problem, Dua, which is that, you know, Slayers needs to have a lot of things go right for him to be able to convert this into like a non-8th place. I think Ramkev's now at the deep stages of bargaining in terms of, you know, going through the stages of grief, which is like, okay, you know, I was aiming for a top 4 at the beginning of this game, or you know, some other high hopes. Now he's begging for a 7th place. And he says, you know, maybe a Nikos pops out here, maybe the Chosen that I'm looking for specifically. But I'm thinking about something dramatic. Like, he needs to hit, like, Samira 2 off of this 40 gold that he has.
Ooh, that's really intriguing, actually. Siphoner Chosen Morgana, I like it. Finds a Sejuani too as well. But that Morellonomicon, you might want to rather have it on there. He actually sells it. Interesting, because you've got the item remover, and that's such a strong unit just on its own, having a Sejuani too. A lot of selling going on. He is going all in here, trying to put together some sort of Enlightened build. He's got the talent as well. You've got okay talent items in the GA and the Hand of Justice, so I see where he's going with this. But now you got to get the items onto the champions, and that's going to be a trick in itself here. Oh boy.
He's got to place the items really quickly because he's running out of time and he's losing effectiveness of it. Morgana does end up getting the cast right beforehand. But yes, the Enlightened build has been something that we've seen pop up. It looks like this Diana 3 is just very tanky, just a little bit too hard to kill. And I think if that's going to be it, Lalana, I think, will just barely be able to get this win because the Diana 3 isn't going to be stopped here. Ramkev barely survives at 1 HP, though. And he finds talent, too.
A double talent shop? All right, okay. Maybe we're not quite dead yet. You know, again, like, whenever I'm in this position too, I always say I'm playing for not 8th, which is kind of what we talked about earlier, but that's still the situation. But now, you know, you look at this, you've got Divine in there. No, you don't have Divine in there, but you do have one Lee Sin. You have that strong Morgana. You have a strong Talon. You've got good items. Manages to get 3 Enlightened. 4 would be amazing. Is there a way to maybe get the Aurelia in here?
He would have to give up the Cho'Gath, and he just wants the strongest board possible. That's a Cho'Gath 2. That's a keeper board where Cho'Gath can be high impact. But the problem is, this is a very resilient keeper board from Raza, who has a Jarvan 3 and a Jewel Gauntlet and Ionic Spark. It's not something that you commonly see, but is totally a viable way to build, as you can have additional 3-stars to really supplement your front line. Xayah also doesn't really have the damage as you come to expect, so Ramkev does end up surviving. And Yatsuhashi is at single digits, so You know, Ramkev, again, we've adjusted the goalpost for him. He's no longer aiming for, a top 4 or top 6 even. That 7th place is within grasp, and if he can just hold out a little bit longer, that's a big victory for him. On the flip side, Yatsuhashi, who felt like, oh, at least I'm not getting 8th, what's happening in his camp?
That is a great question. This first lobby is already a little bit insane. Okay, there we go. I was thinking, why not put the Aurelia in over the Lee Sin? The Lee Sin's just a 1-star with no items, not going to get a lot done. This way you get 3 Adept, you get up to 4 Enlightened. This is a board now. This is a legit decent board, but at 1 HP, you got to win every round, and that is going to be tough. Going up against Jaywalking now, who again still has that big Callista, has a big Galio as well, but this Talon and this Morgana have so much sustain and so much damage. Oh! Yatsuhashi out in 8th. Ramkev manages to do it. He got the not 8th.
I mean, that's big.
Wow.
And now Padabol is next on the chopping block. You know, Ramkev, a couple of really impactful things happened that fight. His Yone actually got pulled in, which allowed him to actually reposition the Yone's ults, very fortunately, into the giant club of units. And now another out exists. He might be able to roll down and find Yone 2 and Shen 2. And with that, maybe a top 6 is within grasp. So, a lot of intense action going back and forth, and Ramkev still hanging on by just a thread. It is as close as it gets for Ramkev, just down to 1 HP, but he's doing an excellent job salvaging a situation which, quite frankly, looked doomed.
Well, I'm so impressed, and it takes a lot of mental fortitude as well to keep calm in this situation, and just be like, all right, you know what? It's only the first game. Finds a Shen 2. Item remover to get that Giant Slayer over on his other Yone, so he's well positioned to keep going with this. Meanwhile, some upgrades being achieved by some of the other players in the lobby, and remember, Ramkev, he's still on 1 HP, and there are some strong boards out there, but yeah, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but he's got a shot. Like you said, 6th is not outside of the realm of possibility. Can he survive this round against SC?
That's a nasty shroud hitting Yone and the Lee Sin, potentially kicking Yone out immediately. He's really important to empower Morgana because of the armor and MR shred, but doesn't look like it's going to work. And now with that, it really comes down to whether or not this Jax and Callista duo can take down this enlightened pair of threats in the form of Morgana and Talon. And it's coming down to the wire. The last couple of hits, the reset from Talon's just enough. SCSC is now on the chopping block. Ramkev might be able to survive to the end of stage 5, but there's not much movement in the standings beyond that. Paddlerball's still alive. Jaywalking, entered the teens, but still in a pretty healthy spot and unlikely to die this round. And more importantly, Ramkev is going to hit some really powerful people. I do feel like his matchmaking has been very fortunate, and some of the fights have really gone his way. But there are some really powerful boards he has yet to hit.
Exactly. I mean, we just saw Jaywalking hit a Lee Sin 2 on the sideboard there. Zaiku is on a win streak. This Morgana, though, is insane. Like, with these items, it's so tanky. It's got so much sustain. But now he goes up against Lallana's board here. That's a strong Diana. You can see the items were moving, and let's see how quickly he can eliminate the rest of this board. The Morgana is down early, but the Talon is on the Diana. Oh, another shield comes out. The Akali's on the other Talon, too. This might be the end for Ramkev. Oh, the Talon's down, and that is it. And it will be a 7th. At least it's a not 8. That's a solace you can take.
The entire fight was predicated on whether or not Irelia can get the disarm onto Akali. That is such a big deal, and Ramkev even anticipated, positioned his Irelia in the back line. And when Irelia disarms Akali, and Akali's 80% of your comp's DPS, I mean, it tells the entire story of how that fight planned out. So, unfortunately, it didn't go Ramkev's way, but look, that was one of the hardest earned 7s that you'll see in quite some time. Meanwhile, Paddlerball also in 6th place. So, we do have our top 4 shaping up. SCSC is now in the Ramkev position. Can he be the one who makes a top 4 appearance? He just hit Callista 3, and other people are starting to get online. Raza hitting his Kennen 2-star. So is this going to be enough for Lallana to twist a dagger? And he's really looking for an opportunity to secure his top 4 spot. And right now, he's looking in a pretty good position to do so.
Yeah, he's only 2 Akalis away from the Akali 3. That would be huge if he managed to hit it. Gets a Bloodthirster for the Talon, which is an okay item. It's, you know, not going to be spectacular, but it's better than nothing, right? Now he goes up against Zaiku, who is on that win streak. Oh. This is a player to beat right now. Look at that Lee Sin, though. Blue buff redemption. That blue buff he's going to be casting so quickly. Oh, and he gets 1 knockoff already. The Talon going to come back with the GA, but this Diana still looking fairly strong. Diana versus the world here. That GA on the Tryndamere has already been popped. And it doesn't matter. He's going to go down, got the Jack stun anyway, and Lalana is going to lose some HP. Zaiku win streaking all the way up to first in the lobby right now.
Yeah, that Slayer's board from Zaiku looks very hard to stop. He also has a pair of Samiras, so he's very close to becoming full power. Speaking of full power, though, SCSC hitting Kalista 3, Jax 3, the unconventional duelist build, which we've been seeing have success. Usually people think about Yasuo and Yone as the defining champions of that composition, with, of course, having Lee Sin at the top end. But we've seen some really good success with this composition in particular. He's going to position the Shroud for the Lee Sin to potentially kick the Kennen. If he can kick the Kennen out, that'd be huge. Ooh. He's also going to focus on the Jarvan as well. Jarvan not getting the CC and being a huge portion of the tank is a big deal. And SCSC has crashed to the front line. It is up to Xayah to wipe out the remaining units, and that's not going to be enough. Raza is eliminated in what looks like to be 5th place, as the rest of the battles have concluded, and SCSC pulling out a 1-up over Ramco says, hey, you know what is better than a 1 HP comeback from 8th to 7th? A 1 HP comeback to sneak into the top 4.
Yeah, and so this 6 duelist comp too, this is sort of like a SC's signature comp. He won a game with it on day 1 of the tournament. He brought it back now for day 3. Like you said, hit that Jax chosen, managed to make it into a Jax 3. And along with the Kalista 3 and the itemization, this composition is very hard to stop in the late game. And Lee Sin 2 as well. Let's see if the Shroud is going to be in the right place against Zaiku. That Shroud looks pretty decent. Hits a Tryndamere. It's okay at least. It's going to slow down that spin a little bit, but it's all about giving that Kalista in the back line enough time. Doesn't have a QSS, so you really need to keep people away from it because she needs to keep firing. And man, he is having no trouble at all taking out Zaiku. So much for that win streak. So much for Zaiku. Out in 3rd, Lalana out in 2nd, and is SCSE going to do it again? He's like 1 or 2 rounds away from getting his 2nd first place with this comp in the tournament.
The Zephyr, he's trying to beeline for it, and Jaywalking says, hey, actually, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I just want my units to cast a little bit quicker. But, you know, Doa, I am not surprised to see this, but I am surprised that, you know, we didn't expect it or actually talk about it. It's an all-Korea top 2 right now. Jaywalking versus SCSC, just a couple of feet or meters away from each other. And, you know, this is going to be an explosive finish. I do want to see how the Zephyr is going to be utilized because, you know, SCSC will have the ability to sell the Zephyr. Oh, okay, he's using his magnetic remover to get the optimal Shroud as well. He wants to finish this in 1 blow and optimize his chances and place the items after he knows where they are. So the Shroud most likely going to come down onto this Lee Sin to stop him from kicking, and we're going to see that's enough to swing the fight.
The Zephyr on the Aatrox is really nice. He actually positioned his Sand Soldiers to make sure the Kalista wouldn't get pulled anyway, so plenty of time here for SC to keep shooting with this Kalista. Azir comes through. The Jax, can he get the stun in the back? He certainly can, and that's an easy win there. Jaywalking way down there, and it might be 2 Korean players in the top 2. That's true, Frodan, but you know they are not going to be any less competitive after, you know, you and I used to do StarCraft back in the day, and so we'd cast players that were in the same team houses. They were living together, practicing together, but when it came to these 1v1 competitions, it is cutthroat. There is no quarter given. Both of these guys want this win bad, but right now SCSC looks like he's got a little bit of an edge. Let's check out the positioning here. He is
in the cloying position of trying to level to 9, but just a couple of gold short. Instead, rolling it down, see if he can improve. Did not really reposition and scout accordingly, but he's going to hope that this worked. He does miss the Lee Sin, both of the Zephyr and that Shroud, and I wonder if that's going to be the difference maker, because blue buff Lee Sin can wreak such a havoc on this Kalista.
Oh, he's
Kalista
gone.
Killed the Lee seconds before he was able to execute onto her, and now it's just a Kalista versus Kalista battle. Jaywalking, trying to see if he can deal with the Jax, but the Jax is going to finish it. SCSC with the 1 hit point comeback, able to close out round 1 as Jaywalking looks behind him.
Jaywalking back
That's
there,
right. Don't worry about what's in front of you. Worry about what's behind you, Jaywalking.
That is amazing. Oh, you love to see it. Like, I knew the games were going to be good today. I didn't expect it to pop off right away in game number 1. What a finish between our two Korean players here. And I love that we got the shot of SCSE winning, and you can see jaywalking in the back be like, no. So close. But hey, great results. Remember, it's those 1 and 2 spot finishes that give you the most points in the lobbies right now too. 10 points for first, 8 points for second. And so those 2 spots are crucial. So already right off the bat, our 2 players from South Korea getting a long way towards that 18-point threshold.
We got to talk about it, Doa. Day number 1, North American dominance. Day number 2, the rise of Europe and CIS and Turkey showing what they're made of. And day 3, Korea is on the map here. The first game, the first round, showing up top 2, which, by the way, accurately reflects how most of those regions do in almost every esport ever. North America does well in the beginning. We're really good at in the beta. And then you see Europe's like, yeah, well, here's the way to play NA style, but better, or like do better than them. And then Korea's like, hey, we got this. Don't worry. Everything is as normal. But I mean, it's one round, and it's our job to have knee-jerk reactions. But I mean, I got to say, the jaywalking and SCSE being the top 2, I'm starting to sweat a little bit, though. I feel like the prophecy is going to come true.
I mean, we've got a great storyline building already between those 2 players specifically. Jaywalking coming into this tournament as the winner of the Korean qualifier. SCSC, I believe, was second. He was second or third in there, obviously. I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But like we talked about, he is a champion in other esports. He's got a career going back more than a decade. I casted his games when I lived in Korea in 2011 in a different game. And to see him here now is kind of wild to begin with. But to see him already go so far towards that championship, what a great storyline we have building. And we got to talk about some of the other players in the lobby too, right? We saw Ramkev, the hope for NA. He did go 7th, but you can see the skill that this guy possesses too, where it looked like an 8th. No question, was able to actually bring it back, salvage a 7th, which may not seem impressive on paper, but if you watch that game, that was some pretty mind-blowing play from him just to be able to do that. So this is not over by a long shot. Anyone could still win it.
Yeah, and another thing too is you love to see the top 3 compositions the way it is, right? Cultist / Callista duelist in the top 2, which, by the way, jaywalking another second, just very on brand for him. And then Diana Assassins in 3rd, right? And then how far do we have to go before we found our first traditional meta comp in Slayers? Well, it turned out to be in 4th place. So a little quick recap of how game 1 went for people who may have been straggling in just halfway through that round. We started off with a very promising win streak, a quick 6 cultists on stage 2-3, which, I thought jaywalking was going to be able to convert into a top 4 guaranteed. He went one step further and went top 2.
And I mean, the thing is, it was kind of a race to Callista 3 in general in this lobby, right? Because jaywalking had that cultist board. You love to have the Callista 3 in that situation too, but little did he know his fellow South Korean player was also on the hunt for the Callista 3. Meanwhile, we saw Ramkev being in 8th, finally getting that cash out. But look at these items. What do you do with it? He managed to put together a 7th with it. Meanwhile, jaywalking continues to grow stronger, getting that 6 duelist build. Like I mentioned, I'm pretty sure he's the only person who's really been playing in the tournament, and he did get a win with it. SCSE, that is, did get a win with the 6 duelist build back on day 1. Here we see the end of the game again. Looked okay.
Oh yeah, just
those
look
duelists,
at
man.
the power of the Jax. I mean, it's one of those things too where it ends up being something that incidentally is really powerful against other people. Jax is so good versus auto attack compositions. His rival happens to play Callista, the same carry that he has, which struggles to get damage in if Jax is dodging. So, really exciting finish. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, the points for day 3 are different. So first and second place get 10 points and 8 points. And that's important because of the point threshold. So in the next couple games, if SCSE places 5th back-to-back, normally that's not a situation where you're that happy with. But SC will feel like, okay, I hit that point threshold. Now I can play for first. So the strategy of these players are going to be evolving throughout game to game. On the other side, right, what Raza, Passball, Ramkev, and Yatsuhashi, they're going to have to retool their strategy. But the nice thing to know is that it's never truly over till it's over. In a game of TFT, or rather in a tournament of TFT Doa, how many times have you seen players feel like, okay, there's no way for me to qualify, there's no way for me to win, just whatever this game. In this format,